Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, let us walk together along a quiet path where time slows and a mysterious bridge emerges only beneath the soft touch of rain. Step gently, breathe deeply, and let the gentle rhythm of raindrops carry you across a world whispered in mist and memories. It had been dry for weeks, the kind of unbroken heat that leaves dust clinging to the hems of your trousers and a faint taste of earth on your tongue every time the wind stirs. The grass along the riverbank had turned pale and brittle, its blades snapping softly beneath your steps, and even the air seemed to hang heavy, as though waiting for something to shift. You had been walking without much purpose that afternoon, letting the sun sink behind its curtain of haze, when you noticed the smell changing, the faintest, freshest hint of rain, sharp and green, drifting on a breeze that felt cooler than it should have been. It made you pause mid-step, as if some small, forgotten memory had brushed your shoulder and whispered that you ought to pay attention. The first drops came lightly, almost shyly, tapping against your skin with a gentleness that made you close your eyes. The dust rose in little spirals from the path, releasing a scent so earthy and rich it felt like breathing in the heart of the land itself. You might have turned back, then retraced your way toward the glow of home, but something in the air tugged you forward. The rain thickened slowly, each drop heavier than the last, until it became a curtain of water, soft yet steady, blurring the far bank of the river into a silvery haze. And it was there, in that shifting veil of rain, that you saw it for the first time. At first, it was only a suggestion of shape, an outline in the distance, like a memory half-formed in the mind. You blinked, rubbed the water from your lashes, and it grew clearer. The arches, dark and glistening, rising from the swollen current, the worn stones slick beneath the rain's touch. You were sure you had walked this way 100 times before, sure that nothing had ever spanned the water here, yet now there it was, solid as the ground beneath your feet. The bridge curved gently, neither steep nor flat, its surface lined with low, moss-covered railings. Every stone seemed to drink in the rain, deepening to a rich, almost black sheen, and rivulets ran down in delicate lines, joining the river below with a quiet, continuous song. You stood for a time just listening to the soft drum of the rain on the stone, the faint lapping of water against the base, and the occasional sigh of wind slipping through the railings. It was the kind of sound that could lull you into forgetting the hours entirely, the kind that made the world beyond the present moment feel distant and unimportant. You stepped forward almost without realizing it, your boots sinking slightly into the softened earth at the edge of the path, the mud cool and yielding beneath your soles. There was no sign of anyone else, no footprints, no movement, nothing but the steady rain and the bridge waiting as though it had been there forever. When you placed your hand on the railing, the stone was cool, almost cold, and slick beneath your fingers. The moss clung damply, its tiny leaves darkened by the rain, releasing a faint green scent when pressed. You traced the worn curve of the stone as you took your first step onto the bridge, feeling the way the surface shifted subtly from the softness of earth to the firmness of something built to last centuries. The sound changed here. The rain still fell, but now it tapped against the stone in a different rhythm, echoing faintly beneath you, as if the bridge itself was hollow. Or perhaps as if there was some hidden space beneath the surface where the rain's music could linger. Halfway across, you paused and looked down. The river moved slowly today, heavy from the first drink it had taken in weeks, its surface dimpling under the rain. The water was not entirely clear. It carried the silt and leaves from the banks, yet here and there you caught glimpses of smooth stones far below, glimmering faintly in the shifting light. You thought of how strange it was, this bridge appearing only now when the rain had come, as though it had been waiting patiently, invisible, for the right moment to show itself. You wondered if it would vanish when the clouds broke, if it would dissolve into mist and leave you standing on the bank as though it had never been. You walked on. The far end of the bridge was veiled more thickly in rain, so much so that it blurred into a pale wash of silver. The air grew cooler as you approached, the scent of wet stone mingling with something else, a faint sweetness, like blossoms after dusk, though no flowers grew here that you could see. The sound of the river faded behind you, replaced by a low, continuous hum, almost too soft to notice, that seemed to come from the stones themselves. You reached out to steady yourself, and for a heartbeat you could have sworn the stone beneath your palm pulsed faintly, as though warmed from within. When you stepped onto the far bank, the rain softened, though it did not stop. The trees here were unfamiliar, their trunks pale and smooth, their leaves long and slender, trembling with the weight of water. The ground was soft with moss that muffled your footsteps, and somewhere deeper in the grove you thought you heard a single chime ring, clear, delicate, and gone before you could be certain it was real. You stood still, listening, but the sound did not come again. The bridge was behind you now, its arch just visible through the mist and rain, and you had the strange feeling that if you turned away for too long, it might not be there when you looked again. You stayed only a short while on that side, though you could not have said why. Something about the place felt both gentle and expectant, as though it were not yet the right time for you to linger. When you began the walk back, the rain grew heavier once more, and with each step you took, the air seemed warmer, the smell of familiar earth returning. By the time you set foot on your own bank again, the outlines of the bridge were already softening, its edges dissolving into the haze. You turned to watch, your breath misting faintly in the cool air, and slowly, almost tenderly, the bridge faded into the rain until there was nothing left but the river flowing quietly beneath the gray sky. That evening, when you returned home and sat by the low fire, the sound of the rain still in your ears, you found yourself wondering if anyone else had seen it, if perhaps, somewhere nearby, another person had crossed it at that same moment, unseen by you. The thought stayed with you long after the fire burned low, long after the rain had passed, until you fell asleep with the image of wet stone and rippling water still fresh in your mind. And when morning came, the riverbank was as it had always been, empty, ordinary, unchanged, except for the lingering sense that something had been there, waiting, and that it might appear again when the rain returned. It was some weeks later, on another day when the clouds pressed low and the scent of rain clung to the air like a faint, unspoken promise, that you found yourself once more wandering toward the river. The sky had the look of brushed pewter, and the light that filtered through seemed softer than usual, as though the sun had been wrapped in thin layers of gauze. You could feel the change before the first drop fell, the cool weight in the air, the quiet stillness that made even the leaves seem hesitant to stir. When the rain finally came, it was steady, fine, and unhurried, 1,000 tiny threads stitching the earth to the sky. You did not need to look to know the bridge would be there again. Somehow, you could feel its presence, the way one might sense the nearness of an old friend in a crowded room. The stones were darker this time, glistening as though they had just been washed clean. The air smelled of wet river reeds and the faint sweetness of something blooming unseen. You stepped onto the path without hesitation, your boots already damp from the grass, and the sound of the rain on the river filled the space around you in a soft, unbroken hush. Yet, even before you set foot on the first stone, you noticed you were not alone. There, already halfway across the bridge, was a figure moving steadily toward the far side. At first, they were only a pale blur through the rain, their outline softened by the mist that rose from the water. But then you caught the flicker of warm light, a lantern, swinging gently from one hand, its flame golden against the cool silver of the day. The figure wore a long dark coat that reached nearly to their ankles, its surface beaded with rain that slid away in glistening streams. Their head was bowed slightly, the brim of a wide hat shading their face, and they walked without hurry, each step measured and certain, as though the rain was of no consequence to them. The lantern's glow was small but constant, a delicate orb of warmth in the grayness, casting soft light onto the stones at their feet. You could see the way the flames swayed with the rhythm of their stride, sometimes flaring when the wind moved through, sometimes shrinking as if drawing in against the damp. The closer you looked, the more it seemed that the light was not only in the lantern, it lingered faintly along the figure's outline, as though the rain itself caught some reflection of it and carried it outward in rippling halos. You slowed your steps, uncertain whether to call out, though no words came to mind that would not sound strange on your tongue. The rain wrapped the bridge in a curtain of quiet, making the distance between you feel longer than it was. They did not turn their head, did not seem to notice you at all, though you were certain they must have. The steady rhythm of their boots against the stone was the only sound that stood apart from the rain, and even that was muted, as though the bridge itself was listening. When they reached the far side, you thought perhaps they might pause or glance back, but they did neither. Without breaking stride, the figure stepped off the bridge and into the pale mist beyond. For a moment, the lantern's glow hovered there, golden against the white, and then it began to fade, dimming until it was no more than a memory against the gray. You stood still, halfway between the banks, your hand resting on the damp railing, and wondered whether you had truly seen them, or if the bridge was showing you something that belonged to another time. You continued walking, the stones cool beneath your feet, and the air seemed to grow quieter as you neared the far bank. There was no sign of the lantern carrier now, no footprints in the moss, no trail through the wet grass, not even the faint scent of burning oil that should have clung to the air. Only the soft hiss of rain on leaves accompanied you. You stepped a little further into the mist, just far enough to see the pale trunks of unfamiliar trees rising like columns, their branches draped with long threads of rainwater. Something about the silence here felt expectant, as though the place was holding its breath, waiting for you to do something you could not yet name. You did not linger long. There was a sense, faint but certain, that this was not a day for crossing too far. You turned back toward the bridge, and in doing so, caught one last glimpse of something across the water. It was not the lantern carrier, not exactly, but a shimmer in the mist, a faint impression of movement, as though the rain itself remembered their passing. You crossed without hurry, the sound of the river growing louder again, the cool breath of the water rising to meet you. By the time you stepped onto the bank, you knew the rain had eased to a fine mist, barely enough to wet your skin. You glanced back once more, but the bridge was already beginning to fade, the stones losing their solidity, the arches softening into shadow. Soon there would be only the river, quiet and unbroken, and the ripples from the rain drifting outward in widening circles. That night, lying in the half-dark, with the window open to the scent of the damp earth, you found yourself thinking of the lantern carrier's steady steps, the unwavering flame, and the way they had passed without ever looking back. There was a comfort in the memory, though you could not say why. Perhaps it was the sense that the bridge did not only appear for you, that somewhere in the world there were others who walked its rain-slick stones, carrying their own quiet light through the mist. And as you drifted toward sleep, you imagined the bridge gleaming under the rain again, and the soft, golden glow moving steadily into the distance. It was on the third time you crossed the bridge that you first noticed it, not the sight of something unusual, but a sound, faint and elusive, tucked so carefully into the rain's own murmur that you almost missed it entirely. The day had been one of those long, low-lit afternoons when the clouds had been gathering since morning, and you could smell the rain before you could see it. The way the air thickened with the scent of wet leaves and distant water. By the time you reached the path by the river, the first drops were already touching the surface, making tiny concentric ripples that spread outward like soft bells ringing across the water. And there it was, again, the bridge, drawn out of the rain as if the falling sky had painted it into being, each stone deepening in color until it seemed to hold the wet light inside itself. The rain was heavier this time, not in a harsh way, but in a way that wrapped the world in a deeper quiet. The sound of it filled every space, the air, the river, the hollow under the arches. Yet beneath it all, there was something else. You didn't hear it at first, when you stepped onto the bridge. It was only when you paused midway, resting your hand on the cold, damp railing, that you became aware of it. A low, resonant hum, steady and unbroken, rising faintly from below your feet, as though the stones themselves were speaking in a language older than the river. You leaned slightly over the side, peering down into the water. The river moved sluggishly under the weight of the rain, its surface a shifting quilt of silver and shadow. The arches below you were half shrouded in mist, their curves disappearing into the wet air. And somewhere deep beneath them the sound seemed to originate, not from the flow of water, nor from the rain striking the surface, but from within the structure itself. It was not loud, and yet it seemed to reach into your bones, the kind of sound you felt as much as heard, like the faint vibration of a bell after it has been struck. As you walked on, the hum remained with you, changing slightly with each step, as though the tone shifted in response to your movement. The stone beneath your boots felt firm, yet faintly alive, as if carrying the sound upward from its hidden heart. The rain slicked every surface, dripping steadily from the mossed arch railings, pooling in shallow dips, worn into the path by countless unseen footsteps. You wondered who had first built this bridge, who had placed these stones so precisely that they would still stand after so many years, and whether they had meant for it to sing when the rain came. Near the far end, you stopped again, closing your eyes to listen more closely. The hum had a rhythm to it, though not like a song you could hum back. It was slower, deeper, like the pulse of something vast and patient. Now and then, a faint overtone would rise and fade again, almost like a voice carried from far away, but always beyond the reach of clear words. You opened your eyes, to find the mist on the opposite bank curling and shifting as though stirred by an unseen hand. And the air there was colder, touched with the sharpness of stone, and something faintly metallic, as if the rain here washed over old iron long hidden from sight. You stepped onto the bank and felt the hum lessen behind you, though it did not disappear entirely. It lingered in the soles of your feet, in the memory of the rain's song on stone, in the way your breath seemed slower here without your willing it. You wandered a little way into the trees, their trunks pale and wet, their leaves whispering with each drop that passed through them. The ground was soft with a carpet of moss and fallen needles, and in the spaces between the trees you glimpsed flashes of still water, dark and glassy, holding the gray sky like a mirror. For a while you simply walked, though the mist and the sameness of the grove made it hard to tell how far you had gone. And then, faintly, you heard it again, the hum, though now it was softer, as if coming not from beneath your feet, but from somewhere all around you. You paused, listening, and realized it was layered with something else, an almost imperceptible echo, like the memory of the bridge's voice carried into this place. You could not say how long you stood there, only that time seemed to soften, each moment melting into the next, until you no longer thought of the rain soaking through your coat or the distance you had yet to walk. Eventually you turned back, and as the bridge came into view through the mist, the hum grew stronger again, as though greeting your return. You stepped onto the stones once more, and for the length of your crossing you let the sound guide you, your pace unconsciously matching its rhythm. The rain had not lessened, yet you felt no impatience for it to stop. There was a peace in its constancy, in the way it joined with the deeper voice beneath the bridge to form something whole. When you reached the familiar bank, you lingered a moment before stepping off, pressing your palm to the railing, as if to hold the vibration there a little longer. The cold of the stone seeped into your skin, and for a heartbeat you imagined you could feel the bridge breathing, slow and steady, under the rain. By the time you looked back from the edge of the path, the mist was already beginning to reclaim it, the arches fading first, then the curve of the railing, until there was only the rain and the river again. That night, as you lay listening to the distant patter of drops on the roof, you could still hear the hum, not in your ears, but somewhere deeper, as if it had settled quietly into you. You thought of how many storms must have passed over that bridge, how many pairs of footsteps it had carried, each one adding to the story in its stones. And as sleep began to draw you in, you felt as though the bridge itself was still there, humming softly in the darkness, waiting for the next rain to call it forth again. It was on a morning of steady, silver rain, the kind that begins before you wake and lingers without hurry, that you set out once more toward the river. The world felt softened, edges blurred by the mist that hung low across the fields, and every sound was cushioned by the constant hush of falling water. Your coat was already damp at the shoulders before you reached the familiar bend in the path, where the air always seemed to carry the first breath of the river. You knew before you saw it that the bridge would be waiting, drawn once again from the veiled curtain of rain, its stones glistening darkly as though they had been polished in the night. The crossing felt as it always did at first, the cool firmness of the stone underfoot, the low railings beaded with droplets, the faint echo of water moving far below. You let your hand trail along the railing, fingertips brushing over the damp moss, and you could almost feel the bridge remembering you. The hum was there again to that deep, steady note beneath the rain, though softer than the last time, as though speaking in a quieter mood. You breathed it in, that mingling of wet stone and river air, and followed the curve upward toward the far side. But when you stepped from the last stone onto the opposite bank, you found yourself standing in a place that was not the same as before. You had expected the pale grove, with its smooth trunks and whispering leaves, but it was not there. Instead, a narrow lane stretched ahead, lined with tall hedges glistening from the rain, their dark leaves smelling faintly of rosemary and pine. The air felt warmer here, touched with a faint, smoky sweetness, as though someone nearby had a fire crackling behind closed shutters. The lane curved gently out of sight, its edges blurred by the soft rain, and the ground beneath your boots was not moss but small, flat stones that clicked softly with each step. You walked slowly, half expecting the grove to return at any moment, but the hedges only seemed to grow taller, arching inward until they formed a kind of living tunnel. Water dripped steadily from their tips, falling in a rhythm that seemed almost deliberate, as though the rain had been taught to keep time. Now and then, through small gaps in the green, you glimpsed the shimmer of light, lanterns perhaps, their glow muted and golden, though you never saw the hands that tended them. The air here was different from the riverbank. It felt enclosed, protected, like stepping into the pause between one breath and the next. The lane eventually opened onto a small square paved with uneven cobblestones, each stone slick with rain and edged with tufts of green. At its center stood a fountain, though no water flowed from it now. Instead, rain pooled gently in its wide basin, reflecting the gray sky in a trembling mirror. Around the square were a few shuttered windows, their wooden frames darkened by years of weather, and doors that looked as though they had not been opened in some time. You could hear the rain on the rooftops above, a sound as steady as your own heartbeat, but no voices, no footsteps, no sign of anyone at all. You moved closer to the fountain and rested your hand on its cold rim, feeling the stone slick beneath your palm. The rain made the surface ripple, distorting the reflection of your face, until it looked like a memory belonging to someone else. The stillness here was unlike anything on the other side of the bridge. It was not the quiet of nature, but the quiet of a place waiting for something to begin again. You had the thought that if you stayed long enough, the windows might open, the doors might swing wide, and someone might step out, as if you had always been meant to arrive at this very moment. But the longer you stood there, the more the mist began to thicken, curling in from the edges of the square, softening the lines of the hedges and the rooftops until they began to dissolve into it. You knew then, without quite knowing how, that the bridge would not wait forever. You turned back, retracing your steps down the narrow lane, though it seemed shorter now than before, the turns fewer, the air cooler. The hedges parted without effort, and soon the sound of the river began to rise again beneath the rain. When you stepped onto the first stone of the bridge, you looked back over your shoulder, hoping for one last glimpse of the square. But there was only the pale mist and the shifting curtain of rain. It struck you then that perhaps the bridge did not lead to any one place at all, but to many, and that each crossing was a question to which the world would offer a different answer. The thought settled into you like a stone into water, rippling outward quietly as you made your way back across. By the time you reached the far bank, the rain had begun to lighten, though the air was still cool and full of the scent of wet earth. You turned once more to watch the bridge fade, the arches dissolving into the mist until the river flowed unbroken before you. It was as if the path you had taken moments ago had never been there, as if the square with its silent fountain existed only in the rain's memory. That night, with the window cracked open to let in the smell of the damp earth, you thought about how the far side of the bridge could shift like that, wearing a new face with each visit. You wondered if somewhere, on another day of rain, you might step across and find the grove again, or something else entirely. A market under dripping awnings, a meadow shrouded in silver fog, or perhaps even a place you had known once long ago. And as you drifted toward sleep, you understood that the bridge was not only a passage between two banks of water, but between moments, between worlds, each waiting quietly for the sound of your footsteps in the rain. It was one of those gentle rains that seemed to fall without urgency, the kind that threads the air with silver and softens the edges of the world until everything feels touched by a quiet magic. You found yourself drawn, as if by habit or something deeper, back to the riverbank, where the familiar curve of the bridge was beginning to take shape beneath the delicate fall of droplets. The stones glimmered, dark and wet, their surfaces alive with the rain's slow dance, and the air held that unmistakable scent of damp earth mingled with something lighter, the faint perfume of blooming jasmine from the garden nearby. As you stepped onto the bridge, the coolness of the stone pressed gently against your boots, and the soft rhythm of your footsteps was carried away by the steady murmur of rain. You moved slowly, your hand trailing along the mossy railing, when, just ahead, you noticed a figure standing quietly beneath a slender umbrella, delicate and pale as folded paper. The umbrella was a soft cream color, flecked with tiny painted blossoms, each petal catching the rain in miniature pools that shimmered like tiny stars. The girl beneath it was still, as if part of the rain itself, her gaze lowered toward the river that slipped silently beneath the bridge's arches. She wore a simple cloak of muted blue, the fabric heavy with moisture and folding softly around her shoulders. Her hair was dark and damp, strands clinging to her temples and neck in a way that made her seem more fragile, more present in this moment of rain and quiet. You stepped closer, the sound of your approach barely disturbing the delicate hush, and for a while neither of you spoke. The rain fell steadily, a gentle percussion on the umbrella's surface, a constant lullaby that filled the space between your breaths. The girl lifted her eyes at last, meeting yours with a softness that felt like a secret waiting to be shared. Her smile was small and slow, touched with the shy warmth of a whispered memory. She reached out a hand, and for a heartbeat you thought she might offer you the umbrella. But instead, she pressed something into your palm, a single paper crane, folded carefully from creamy, rain-speckled paper. Its edges were worn and softened by the moisture, but it held its shape with quiet dignity, delicate wings poised as if ready to take flight. You looked up, and her smile deepened, as though she understood without words what the paper crane meant. A promise, a hope, a small talisman to carry through whatever journeys the rain might bring. The air around you smelled faintly of rain-washed stone and fresh leaves, and the touch of her hand lingered for a moment, cool and light like the rain itself. She spoke then, her voice a low murmur almost lost beneath the falling droplets, saying only, "The bridge will carry you where you need to go, but the rain is your guide." Time seemed to fold in that moment, the world narrowing to the two of you beneath the umbrella's soft canopy. You could feel the pulse of the river beneath the stones, hear the distant call of a lone bird hidden somewhere in the trees, and taste the freshness of rain on your lips. The paper crane rested in your palm, fragile and real, a reminder of the delicate balance between what is seen and what remains hidden in the mist. After a few moments, the girl turned away, her footsteps muffled by the damp moss and the soft patter of rain. She crossed the bridge with a grace that seemed to echo the flow of water itself, the paper umbrella catching each drop with quiet reverence. You watched her go, the slow sway of her figure becoming part of the rainy landscape, until she reached the far bank and disappeared into the silver haze beyond. You remained for a while longer, the paper crane still in your hand, feeling the gentle weight of the rain and the strange warmth of the moment settling deep inside you. The world around the bridge seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next story to unfold, the next crossing to be made. When you finally stepped back toward your own bank, the rain had softened into a fine mist, and the bridge began to fade once again, its stones melting into the air until only the river remained, flowing quietly beneath a sky full of whispered memories. That night, as you lay beneath a blanket warmed by the lingering chill of the day, the paper crane rested on your bedside table, a silent companion to the rain tapping softly against the window pane. The memory of the girl with the paper umbrella drifted through your thoughts like a gentle breeze, a reminder that even in the quietest moments, there are promises woven into the rain, waiting for you to carry them forward. And as sleep found you, you dreamed of the bridge glowing softly in the rain, its stones shining with the light of 1,000 paper cranes, each one a small hope carried safely across the mist. There was a morning when you woke to a soft whispering, the kind of quiet that lingers just before dawn, when the world feels suspended between night and day, and the sky is draped in the gentlest shades of gray. The rain had come again during the night, a slow, steady drizzle that left everything soaked and shimmering with a liquid silver sheen. Outside your window, the scent of damp earth and crushed leaves filled the air, deep and rich, promising more rain but also something different, something whispered in the half-light, something that spoke of waiting. You pulled on your coat, its fabric cool and heavy with moisture, and made your way toward the river, guided by the faint rustle of wet branches and the soft murmur of water moving beneath the sky. The bridge had already begun to appear, its arches dark and slick, rising from the river's edge like a memory drawn from the mist itself. The stones were wet to the touch, cool and smooth beneath your fingers as you traced the curve of the railing, feeling the pulse of the rain caught in every surface. As you stepped onto the bridge, a chill brushed over your skin, the kind that comes from air thick with mist and the slow breath of water rising in quiet waves. You glanced down and saw it, a pale fog curling upward from the river, weaving through the arches like smoke caught in a slow dance. The mist rose and fell in gentle swells, wrapping the bridge in a soft, silvery veil that blurred the edges of everything it touched. The world beyond became a watercolor painting, colors melting into one another, shapes softened until they felt like memories half remembered in a dream. The air smelled of wet stone and fresh rain, but beneath that was a sweeter note, faint and elusive, like the scent of honeysuckle carried on a breeze long past its blooming season. The mist moved slowly, brushing your cheeks with a cool, damp kiss, settling in the hollows of your neck and the crease of your elbows. Each breath you took was thick with it, warm and moist, filling your lungs with the gentle breath of the river and the rain combined. You paused in the middle of the bridge, letting the mist swirl around you, listening to the delicate patter of rain against the stone and the distant, muted call of birds waking in the trees. The world felt suspended. Time stretched thin like a fine thread, fragile and glimmering in the dawn's soft light. There was no hurry here, only the slow, steady pulse of water rising and falling. The mist wrapping you in its quiet embrace, as though the bridge itself were a threshold between worlds. As you looked toward the far bank, the mist thickened, cloaking the trees in ghostly veils that shimmered like spun glass. Their branches dripped with rain, each drop catching what little light there was and sending it flickering softly through the haze. You noticed how the colors seemed muted, not gone, but softened. Greens turned to pale jade, browns to gentle umber, all held in a delicate balance between shadow and light. The ground beneath the trees was carpeted with wet moss and fallen leaves, the textures softened by the mist until even the rough bark seemed to sigh beneath your gaze. You stepped off the bridge, the damp earth cool and welcoming beneath your boots, and wandered slowly into the mist-shrouded grove. Each step felt like a careful unraveling of a secret, the silence around you deepening as you moved further from the river's edge. The mist curled around your ankles and rose in tendrils that brushed your sleeves, soft as feathers, carrying with them the faintest trace of something you could not name, a memory, perhaps, or a feeling you had long forgotten. Farther in, the trees grew closer together, their trunks like pale pillars rising from the mist, and you felt the quiet swell as though the air itself held its breath. There was a stillness here that went beyond absence of sound, a presence felt in the gentle weight of the mist and the slow, rhythmic beating of your own heart. Somewhere, hidden beneath the quiet, you thought you heard the faintest ripple of water, not the river, but something softer, a current whispered beneath the earth or carried by the breath of the mist itself. You stopped beneath a wide, arching branch, heavy with rain, the droplets gathering and falling in slow, deliberate beads that caught the gray light like tiny stars. The mist wrapped you close, a cool, damp shawl, and for a moment the world beyond the trees seemed to dissolve completely. It was as if you were suspended in a space outside time, cradled between the falling rain and the rising mist. When you finally turned back, the mist clung to you, still, soft, and persistent, wrapping around your shoulders and rising in tendrils that caught in your hair. The bridge reappeared through the haze, its stones gleaming, wet and dark, the arches framing the river like the pages of an ancient book slowly opening to reveal the next chapter. You crossed once more, the hum beneath the stones, returning as a low, comforting presence beneath your feet, and as you reached the familiar bank, the mist began to thin, drifting away on a breath of wind until it was only a faint memory in the morning light. That evening, as the rain slowed to a whisper and the world settled into the quiet hush of twilight, you found yourself recalling the softness of the mist and the way it had risen from the water like a sigh. You held that memory close, like a secret gift, a moment caught between rain and river, between stone and sky, and as you slipped into sleep, you carried with you the gentle breath of the mist rising from the water, a quiet promise that the bridge would appear again. There was a time, on an evening, when the rain had slowed to a gentle, persistent drizzle, that you found yourself once again standing at the edge of the river, watching as the light faded softly behind a curtain of cloud. The sky was a muted palette of smoky blues and tender grays, blending seamlessly into the silken surface of the water. The air was cool but not cold, carrying the faint scent of wet stone and moss, mingled with the subtle sweetness of damp wildflowers growing just beyond the path. You could hear the gentle lap of the river against the shore, a sound steady and soothing, like a whispered lullaby, coaxing the day toward rest. As you waited, the bridge slowly began to emerge, a soft silhouette rising from the rain-soaked earth, its arching stones gleaming wet and dark beneath the delicate fall of droplets. The rain here was not hurried or harsh. Instead, it fell with a calm rhythm, each drop catching the last light of dusk and scattering it. The world felt wrapped in a hushed glow, as if the very air was breathing slowly, settling into the quiet that only twilight can bring. You stepped onto the bridge, feeling the cool, smooth stone beneath your feet, slick with the tender sheen of rain, and the low, steady hum beneath the surface seemed to pulse in time with your own heartbeat. The damp railings, mossy and worn, whispered softly as your fingers brushed against them, leaving behind a faint trace of warmth in the coolness. Around you, the mist rose gently from the river, curling and swirling like silken threads of smoke that caught the fading light and made the world feel less solid, more like a memory half remembered on the edge of sleep. Midway across, you paused to lean over the railing, the scent of wet earth and water rising to meet you in a delicate embrace. Below, the river moved steadily, its surface rippling quietly where the rain touched it, carrying a song that seemed older than the stones beneath your feet. It was a song without words, a melody woven from the gentle sounds of flowing water, the soft fall of rain, and the whisper of wind threading through distant trees. You could feel it vibrating faintly through the bridge's arches, a lullaby meant for those who knew how to listen. The air was cool against your cheeks, kissed by the rain and the coming night, and you drew it deeply into your lungs, filling yourself with the quietness of the moment. Somewhere just beyond the mist, the faint call of a night bird echoed softly, adding a delicate harmony to the river's song, as if nature itself was composing a gentle symphony to soothe the twilight hours. The sound wrapped around you like a blanket, comforting and steady, guiding your thoughts slowly downward until all that remained was the rhythm of rain and water, the pulse of stone, and the slow unfolding of dusk. As you crossed to the far side, the path beneath the trees was slick with rain and strewn with fallen leaves, their edges softened and darkened by the moisture. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches draped with droplets that hung like tiny lanterns catching the last light. The scent of pine and wet bark mingled with the faintest hint of smoke, as if a hearth somewhere nearby had been lit against the coming chill. You walked slowly, savoring the cool dampness on your skin and the steady music of the river fading behind you. Eventually, you found a place to sit, a worn stone bench nestled beneath an ancient oak whose heavy branches reached protectively over the path. The rain had softened now to a mere mist, the fine droplets settling gently like a whisper on your face and hands. The world felt still and timeless here, suspended in that delicate moment between day and night, between waking and dreaming. You closed your eyes and let the song of the river fill your senses, the rain's gentle rhythm and the night's soft breath weaving together into a quiet prayer for peace. When you finally rose to return, the bridge was already beginning to fade into the mist once more, the dark stones blending slowly with the silver-gray sky and the shimmering water below. The song of the river lingered still, a tender echo in your heart as you crossed back under the soft embrace of the rain, carrying with you the calm of dusk and the memory of a world wrapped in gentle sound and light. That night, as you lay beneath the soft folds of your blankets, the rhythm of rain against your window seemed to echo that quiet song once more, wrapping you in its tender melody. And as sleep took you, you dreamed of the bridge glowing softly beneath the rain, carrying you gently between worlds, cradled in the music of the river at dusk. There was a night when the rain came softly, like whispered secrets shared between leaves and sky, and you found yourself drawn once again to the river's edge, where the familiar outline of the bridge was just beginning to shimmer beneath the tender fall of droplets. The air was cool, saturated with the scent of wet stone and earth. Yet there was something else lingering in the quiet darkness, faint sweetness carried on the breath of the rain, as if the very world were breathing out a gentle invitation. As you stepped onto the slick stones of the bridge, the rain caressed your skin like the softest silk, each drop a tiny kiss that left behind a cool trail. The hum beneath the archways was there again, low and steady, wrapping itself around your footsteps in a melody without words. The world felt wrapped in a delicate stillness, as if time itself had slowed to match the rhythm of the rain. Beyond the far bank, as you stepped off the bridge and into the softened night, your eyes caught the faintest glimmers of light stretching into the distant small lanterns, their golden flames flickering gently through glass panes, hanging from slender poles that lined the path like quiet sentinels. The lanterns cast pools of amber light upon the rain-slick ground, their glow muted yet warm, spilling softly onto the wet leaves and the glistening cobblestones beneath your feet. Each lantern seemed to pulse softly with life, the flames dancing with the breath of the rain and the night, weaving patterns of shadow and light that shifted like whispered memories. The scent of burning oil mixed with the clean, wet air, a fragrance both ancient and tender, carrying with it the comforting promise of guidance in the dark. You moved forward slowly, your footsteps muffled by the soaked earth, letting the glow from the lanterns lead you as if through a dream. The path curved gently between tall hedges, heavy with rain, their dark leaves shimmering with droplets that caught the lantern light like scattered jewels. The air was alive with the quiet sound of water falling from leaf to leaf, a soft symphony accompanying the steady heartbeat of your footsteps. The night wrapped around you, cool and soft, as the lanterns stretched endlessly ahead, each one a tiny beacon amid the rain's embrace. Along the way, you paused to reach out and touch the rough wooden frame of a lantern post, feeling the grain under your fingertips, slick with moisture and cool to the touch. The warmth from the flame within radiated faintly, a gentle contrast to the evening chill, as if the light itself was alive, breathing, welcoming, quietly patient. You lingered there for a moment, letting the glow seep into your skin, mingling with the steady rhythm of the rain and the soft pulse of the bridge's hum still echoing beneath your feet. Further along, the path opened into a small clearing where the lanterns hung low from twisting branches, their light casting dappled patterns onto the wet grass and tangled roots. The rain had slowed now to a delicate mist, drifting in fine threads through the air, carrying the scent of damp moss and wildflowers in bloom. The world here felt both close and distant, a place caught between waking and dreaming, where every breath was a gift and every step a quiet unfolding. You found a smooth stone nestled beneath an ancient tree and settled there, the coolness of the wet earth grounding you as you looked up through the shimmering canopy. The lanterns above blinked softly, like stars caught just beyond reach, and the rain whispered its lullaby in the spaces between each breath. You closed your eyes and let the gentle glow and steady patter of water wash over you, a quiet benediction in the heart of the night. When you finally rose to return, the lanterns flickered in farewell, their light mingling with the slow retreat of the mist, and you felt the soft pulse of the rain and the river call you back. The bridge awaited, its stones gleaming wet and familiar beneath the thinning veil of rain. As you crossed once more, the lantern's glow faded gently behind you, folding back into the mist and memory until only the steady, comforting hum beneath your feet remained. That night, as the rain softened to a whisper against your window and the world outside slipped quietly into sleep, you held the memory of the lantern's light close, small flames of warmth and welcome, shining steady through the rain, guiding you softly across the bridge and deeper into the stories whispered by the night. It was on a rainy afternoon, when the sky was a soft sheet of gray and the world seemed wrapped in a gentle hush, that you found yourself once more drawn to the riverbank where the bridge awaited, emerging like a secret from the mist. The rain fell steadily, not in heavy bursts, but in a soft, persistent drizzle that seemed to wash the air clean and smooth the edges of the day. You stepped onto the bridge, feeling the cold, wet stone beneath your boots, each footfall muffled by the dampness, and the low hum beneath the arches welcomed you quietly, a gentle heartbeat beneath your steps, droplets gathering and falling in delicate threads like tears made of glass. As if the trees were telling stories just for you, you stepped off the bridge and into the grove beneath the willows, the ground soft and springy beneath your feet, cushioned by a thick bed of moss and fallen leaves darkened by the rain. The branches arched overhead, creating a canopy that filtered the dim light, dappling the earth in muted greens and silvers. The rain settled into a gentle mist here, falling like a soft curtain that blurred the edges of the trees and made the world feel like a painting come alive, delicate and shifting, full of whispered secrets and hidden places. You could almost hear their stories, tales of rain and river, of time flowing like water beneath stone, of quiet moments folded into the fabric of the earth, its surface smooth and damp beneath your fingertips, alive with the pulse of the rain. And the coolness of the rain mingled with the warmth of the earth beneath you in a delicate balance. The air here felt thick with memory and possibility, as though every drop of rain that fell was a note in a song only the willows could sing, and you were the chosen listener. The world around you seemed to breathe slowly, the rain falling like a soft breath upon the leaves, the river flowing with steady purpose nearby, carrying you gently toward the edge of sleep and dreams. When you finally rose to leave, the rain had softened to a gentle sprinkle, and the willows seemed to bow their branches in a quiet farewell, their whispers fading into the mist like a promise to meet again. As you reached the near bank, the rain began to ease further, the world around you brightening with the faintest hint of fading clouds and the promise of clearer skies, their gentle touch on your skin and the quiet peace that settled deep in your heart. A lullaby woven from rain and river, stone and leaf, guiding you gently through the bridge's quiet, misty world. There was a day when the rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, the kind that seems to whisper secrets to the leaves and turn the world into a softly blurred painting. You found yourself again at the riverbank, where the bridge, always appearing with the rain's first touch, stood quietly waiting, its wet stones glistening darkly beneath the misty sky. The air smelled rich and alive with the scent of wet earth, fresh moss, and the delicate perfume of flowers coaxed open by the gentle rain. You stepped onto the bridge slowly, feeling the cool, damp stone press beneath your boots, and the quiet hum beneath your feet welcomed you like an old friend's steady heartbeat. Crossing over, you arrived at a place unlike any you had seen before. Just beyond the far side of the bridge lay a garden, hidden and still, as though the rain had drawn back a curtain to reveal a secret world. The garden stretched wide, a patchwork of blooming flowers bowed low under the weight of rain, their petals rich with water, each droplet shimmering softly in the muted light. The colors were deep and tender pale blues that echoed the sky's somber hues, soft pinks that blended with the mist, and gentle lavenders that seemed to hum with quiet life. The air here was cooler, touched by the scent of damp leaves and flowering herbs, and beneath it all was the faintest hint of wet stone and old wood. You wandered slowly along narrow paths lined with slick cobblestones, their surfaces worn smooth by time and rain, the steady patter of drops against leaves composing a soothing rhythm around you. The garden felt hushed and sacred, each flower and fern holding its breath beneath the rain's gentle song. The wet earth beneath your feet was soft, its rich dampness cool against your soles, and every step seemed to ripple softly through the quiet stillness, like a delicate echo of the bridge's own silent hum. Along the path, an old wooden bench, weathered and darkened by years of rain and sun, waited beneath the arching boughs of a willow tree, its branches swaying gently with the soft breeze that carried the rain's scent. You settled there, your fingers trailing along the smooth, cool wood, feeling the quiet strength of the bench as if it had borne the weight of many stories whispered beneath the rain. The willow's leaves brushed softly against your face, cool and damp, and the light around you shimmered through the rain-soaked canopy in gentle waves of silver and green. You closed your eyes and breathed deeply, the garden's fragrance filling your lungs, the rich, earthy scent of wet soil mingled with the sweet, subtle aroma of blooming jasmine and honeysuckle. The rain's gentle rhythm was a soft lullaby, a tender murmur weaving through the leaves and petals, wrapping you in a calm embrace. The world felt paused, suspended between the falling rain and the rising mist, a quiet sanctuary held in the gentle breath of the bridge's magic. Opening your eyes, you noticed how the droplets clung to spiderwebs, strung like fine lace between the branches, their fragile threads sparkling with captured light. Nearby, a small pool reflected the gray sky above, rippling softly with each touch of the rain. You leaned closer to watch the water's surface, feeling the coolness rise through the soles of your shoes and the steady pulse of life flowing quietly beneath. The garden seemed to breathe with you, its silence full of soft whispers and unspoken memories. Time seemed to stretch thin here, as if the rain itself had slowed to honor the stillness, and you felt the gentle pull of the bridge behind you, calling you back. You rose slowly, touching a petal heavy with rain, and with one last breath of the garden's fragrance, you turned to cross the bridge once more. The stones beneath your feet were slick but steady, the soft hum rising to greet you as the garden faded behind the mist. folding back into memory like a forgotten dream. As you reached the near bank, the rain lightened further, the world brightening with the promise of clearing skies. The scent of wet earth lingered in the air, warm and reassuring, a quiet reminder of the garden's secret peace. That night, as you lay beneath your blankets and listened to the faint patter of rain against the window, the memory of the quiet garden stayed with you, a soft place, waiting beyond the bridge, wrapped in rain and light, where time itself seemed to pause and breathe. And as sleep gently found you, you carried with you the garden's hush, a delicate thread of calm woven through the rhythm of rain, guiding you softly into dreams. There was a morning when the rain had slowed to a tender drizzle, just enough to veil the world in a delicate mist, and you found yourself drawn once again to the river's edge, where the bridge waited quietly to greet you. The sky was a gentle wash of pale pinks and soft grays, the first light of dawn folding slowly over the horizon like a whispered promise. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of rain-wet earth and fresh green leaves, mingling with the gentle fragrance of blooming wildflowers softened by the morning mist. You stepped carefully onto the bridge, feeling the smooth stones slick with moisture beneath your boots, the faint hum beneath the arches rising to welcome you like a quiet breath held just for this moment. As you walked slowly across, the rain's rhythm softened to a gentle tapping on the wet stone, a soothing song that echoed faintly in the stillness of the morning. The world seemed wrapped in a silken hush, every sound muted and softened, as if nature itself were holding its breath to watch the dawn unfold. The mist curled around the edges of the river, drifting in slow, lazy spirals that shimmered faintly in the early light, blurring the line between water and sky. The river flowed steadily beneath you, its surface catching the soft glow of dawn and reflecting it back in a shimmering dance of pink and silver. On the far bank, the trees stood still and tall, their leaves heavy with raindrops that clung like jewels to every branch and blade of grass. The scent of wet wood and moss rose from the earth, warm and earthy beneath the cool morning air. As you stepped off the bridge, the soft crunch of damp leaves beneath your feet joined the quiet symphony of the dawn, the gentle tapping of rain, the distant call of a waking bird, the whisper of wind through the trees. Each breath you took felt like a slow unfolding, filling your lungs with the calm promise of a new day wrapped in rain's soft embrace. You wandered slowly along a narrow path that wound through the trees, the damp earth cool and soft beneath your boots. The mist wove between the trunks like silver ribbons, catching the early light and making the forest seem both ancient and alive, as though it held secrets whispered only to those who walked its paths in the rain. The rain had almost ceased now, falling in the tiniest, gentlest droplets that settled softly on your skin and hair, leaving behind a delicate shimmer like dew kissed by dawn. The world around you felt fragile and tender, balanced between night's fading shadow and the first breath of day. Along the path, a small clearing opened beneath a canopy of low-hanging branches, heavy with moisture. Here, the grass was lush and soaked, each blade trembling slightly under the lingering rain, and the air smelled sweet with the faintest trace of blooming honeysuckle. You paused and let your fingers brush the wet leaves, feeling the coolness seep into your skin, mingling with the quiet warmth in your chest, the gentle stirring of something both old and new. The soft glow of dawn filtered through the mist in pale beams, painting the clearing in tender hues of rose and amber, as if the world had been touched by a secret light. You sat on a moss-covered stone at the clearing's edge, the dampness cooling your skin and the earth beneath grounding you in the moment's gentle stillness. Closing your eyes, you listened to the faint drip of water falling from leaf to leaf, the soft rustle of the breeze weaving through the trees, and the steady, unhurried flow of the river singing just beyond the mist. It was a song without words, a lullaby of rain and river and dawn, carrying you slowly toward the edges of waking and dreaming, where time melts like morning fog and all that remains is the soft glow of presence. When you finally rose, the mist had begun to lift, drifting away on the warm breath of the coming sun, and the bridge, your steady companion, waited to carry you home. You crossed slowly back, the stones cool and smooth beneath your feet, the low hum beneath the arches, a quiet comfort that seemed to pulse in time with your own heartbeat. The river sparkled with the first full light of day, the rain's kiss lingering on its surface like a tender farewell. That night, as you lay wrapped in your blankets, the memory of dawn's soft glow stayed with youth's fragile light, the gentle mist, the quiet song of rain and river that carried you across the bridge between worlds. And as sleep found you once more, you dreamed of that delicate morning where time slowed and the world held its breath, wrapped in the soft, shimmering embrace of rain's gentle promise. There was a night when the rain fell soft and steady, wrapping the world in a silken veil that blurred the edges of everything it touched, and you found yourself standing once again at the river's edge, where the bridge always borne from the rain's gentle hands waited silently for you. The air was cool, almost crisp, carrying the scent of wet earth and ancient stone, mingling with the faint fragrance of night-blooming flowers that opened only under the quiet cover of darkness. The sky was a deep charcoal, thick with low-hanging clouds that let the rain fall like a tender hymn, steady and sure, a lullaby sung by the heavens to cradle the night. You stepped onto the bridge, your footsteps softened by the wet stone beneath your boots, each contact a gentle thrum in the quiet stillness. The faint hum beneath the arches welcomed you softly, like the breath of a sleeping giant, deep and steady. Around you, the rain whispered on every surface, the soft patter on leaves, the steady drip from eaves, the slow ripple of water where river met stone. It was a song without words, a melody carried on the breath of the rain itself, wrapping you in a soothing embrace that seemed to slow time and hush the world. The mist rose from the river in pale tendrils, weaving through the air like silken threads, catching the dim glow of lanterns flickering softly in the distance. Their light shimmered through the haze, casting pools of golden warmth onto the wet earth, a quiet contrast to the rain's cool touch. You breathed deeply, filling your lungs with the rich scent of rain-wet wood and moss, the faint sweetness of jasmine and damp leaves, and the subtle, earthy fragrance of stone warmed by the day's memory. The night air was alive with these scents, delicate and deep, mingling in a tapestry of calm and comfort. As you walked slowly across the bridge, the rain's song rose and fell in gentle waves, a soft rhythm that seemed to pulse in time with your own heartbeat. Each drop that fell on your skin was a cool caress, a gentle kiss from the night, leaving behind a trail of quiet. The world felt close and expansive, all at once, as though the bridge itself was a delicate thread woven between here and somewhere just beyond Risha, place held safe in the arms of rain and shadow. On the far side, the path led you into a grove of trees, heavy with rain, their branches dripping steadily into the dark earth below. The ground was soft and yielding beneath your feet, fragrant with the scent of damp moss and fallen leaves. The rain's melody wrapped itself around the branches, making the leaves whisper and shimmer with life. A quiet song sung just for you beneath the canopy of night. You reached out to touch the bark of a tree, cool and slick with moisture, feeling the steady pulse of the rain's breath beneath your fingertips. You paused to listen to the rain's steady patter on leaves and earth, the distant call of a night bird hidden in the shadows, and the deep, low murmur of the river flowing beneath the bridge. It was a song made of silence and water, shadow and light, a melody that carried you softly through the night's gentle embrace. The world felt folded into itself, peaceful and still, as if the rain had stitched the night together with threads of quiet and calm. Sitting on a mossy stone beneath the dripping branches, you let the rain's song wash over you, its steady rhythm a balm for the mind and soul. The cool droplets settled on your skin like a soft veil, the mist curling gently around you, blurring the edges of the world and turning every sound into a lullaby. The rain's voice was tender and unwavering, a quiet promise carried on the wind that no matter the darkness, there was always light and calm to be found beneath the falling sky. When you rose to return, the rain had softened to a fine mist, the song slowing to a gentle hum that faded into the hush of the night. The bridge awaited, its stones gleaming wet and familiar beneath the lingering touch of the rain. You crossed slowly back, the hum beneath your feet steady and sure, the mist curling around your shoulders like a soft shawl. The river's song lingered still in your ears, a quiet echo of rain and night and pieces. You reached the near bank and stepped once more into the calm embrace of the sleeping world. That night, as you lay wrapped in blankets and listened to the last whispers of rain against your window, the song of the night rain stayed with you, a gentle melody woven from water and shadow, stone and mist, guiding you gently through the quiet hours and into dreams soft and deep, where the bridge would always wait, born again with every rain's tender touch. There was a moment, gentle and hushed, when the rain fell soft and steady like a slow whisper, and you found yourself once again drawn to the river's edge, where the bridge always appeared as if summoned by the rain's tender breath. The world around you seemed wrapped in a silken quiet, the air cool and thick with the scent of wet stone, moss, and the subtle sweetness of earth freshly soaked. Your footsteps were muffled on the rain-slick stones as you stepped carefully onto the bridge, feeling beneath your feet the cool, smooth surface, kissed by countless droplets, each one catching faint reflections of the dim, gray sky above. As you moved slowly forward, the soft hum beneath the bridge's arches pulsed steadily, a quiet resonance that seemed to breathe in time with your own heartbeat. The rain whispered endlessly around you, a lullaby of steady patter on leaves, the gentle splash against the river's flowing current, and the rhythmic drip from ancient branches overhead. The air was cool against your cheeks, and the droplets caught in your hair felt like the softest kisses from the sky, delicate and insistent. You breathed deeply, filling your lungs with the fresh, clean scent of rain-washed earth, feeling the world shrink to the quiet moments underfoot and the gentle rhythm of your passage. Crossing the bridge, you noticed the way the rain transformed the landscape, how every leaf glistened like a polished jewel, how the wet bark of trees appeared darker, richer, alive with moisture. The path beyond was soft with soaked leaves and moss, cushioning your steps in a muted embrace. Each footfall was quiet, a whispered connection to the earth beneath, the sound blending into the symphony of rain and river. The world felt close and intimate, as if the rain had peeled back the noise and haste of everyday life, leaving only the essential soft sounds, cool touch, and the slow unfolding of time. You wandered deeper along the path, your hands brushing against the damp leaves and delicate ferns, each touch cool and tender, a connection to the quiet magic woven by the rain. The air was alive with subtle scents, the faint musk of damp wood, the sweet temps of wildflowers heavy with water, and the clean freshness of river mist curling low over the earth. The sky above was a soft gray canvas, and the rain seemed to fall not just around you, but through you, filling the space between heartbeats with a tender, steady pulse. Somewhere just ahead, the path curved gently around an ancient oak, its mighty branches dripping steadily with rain, each droplet falling like a tiny bell, tolling softly in the hush. You paused to listen, the quiet sound folding around you like a gentle shroud. The rain's rhythm was steady and sure, a lullaby of water and time, a gentle song that carried you forward through the mist and memories. You felt your breath slow, your heart soften, and the worries of the day melt into the calm embrace of the rain's quiet song. In that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, wrapped in the steady pulse of rain and river, stone and leaf. You closed your eyes and let the soft sound wash over you, feeling the cool touch of droplets on your skin and the faint hum beneath your feet, beneath the bridge that waited always, steady and sure, between worlds. The rain's song was a promise, a gentle invitation to walk slowly, breathe deeply, and remember that even in the quietest moments, there is a bridge that appears only when it rains, carrying you softly across the space between here and somewhere just beyond the reach of waking. When you finally turned to cross back, the stones beneath your feet gleamed wet and steady, the hum beneath the arches a quiet companion guiding you home. The rain's patter softened to a whisper as the mist curled gently around you, folding you into its cool embrace. As you stepped once more onto familiar ground, the memory of quiet footsteps beneath the rain stayed with you, soft, steady, and sure, like the gentle pulse of a world wrapped in calm, waiting patiently for you to return again. It was a night when the rain had softened to a quiet mist, the kind that settles gently on your skin and leaves the world feeling wrapped in a tender embrace, that you returned once again to the river's edge, where the bridge appeared like a secret invitation, wet stones glistening under the soft glow of fading twilight. The air smelled of cool earth and damp wood, mingling with the delicate fragrance of night-blooming flowers, their petals heavy with rain. As you stepped onto the bridge, the smooth, wet stones welcomed your footsteps, their coolness seeping slowly through the soles of your shoes, grounding you in the quiet moment between day and night. Above you, the sky was a deep velvet, thick with clouds that still held the memory of the rain, and the world seemed hushed, as if waiting for something to be revealed. As you walked, a gentle light appeared, ahead, soft, flickering, like a heartbeat shining through the mistland. You realized it was the lanterns, small and glowing, strung along the bridge's arches, like a trail of fireflies caught in a gentle dance. Their warm amber glow spilled softly onto the wet stones, casting shadows that swayed lightly with the night breeze, weaving a path of light that seemed both ancient and alive. You paused, letting the lantern's glow wash over you like a quiet blessing. The air was filled with the gentle sound of rain dripping from leaves and the soft sigh of the river flowing beneath the bridge, a steady murmur that spoke of time flowing slowly and secrets kept close. The lantern light caught the glistening drops on your skin, turning them into tiny stars, and you felt a deep calm settle over you, as if the bridge and its lanterns were welcoming you into a world made of soft light and quiet memories. With slow, careful steps, you continued across the bridge, the lanterns lighting your way in the gentle night. Their flickering flames seemed to reach out, touching the edges of your heart with warmth and quiet joy. A reminder that even in the rain's cool embrace, there is always light to be found. The scent of the lantern's oil mixed with the wet air, a faint, smoky sweetness that wrapped around you like a whispered secret, mingling with the fresh scent of rain and earth to create a tapestry of comfort and peace. As you reached the far side, the lanterns swayed gently above, their light soft and steady, guiding you toward a small clearing where the trees stood tall and quiet, their leaves dripping with the last traces of rain. The air here was cooler still, scented with wet pine and moss, and the soft glow of the lanterns mingled with the faint silver shimmer of moonlight breaking through the clouds. You felt the hush of the night settle around you, wrapping you in a cocoon of warmth and stillness, as though time itself had slowed to honor this quiet crossing. You found a stone bench nestled beneath the trees, its surface cool and damp beneath your fingers, and you sat down to rest, letting the lantern's light wash gently over you. The world seemed to breathe softly, hear the rain's lingering touch, the river's steady song, and the lantern's flickering glow weaving together into a lullaby of light and shadow. The night air was rich with the scent of damp leaves and distant blossoms, the soft murmur of water, and the faint crackle of the lantern flames. Each breath you took filling you with a deep sense of peace. After a while, you rose again, feeling the steady pull of the bridge calling you back. The lanterns seemed to glow a little brighter as you began your return, their light guiding your steps with quiet certainty. The rain had almost ceased now, the mist curling gently around you like a silken shawl, and the stones beneath your feet were cool and familiar. The bridge hummed softly beneath your stride, a steady, soothing song that carried you gently back toward home. The lantern's warm glow fading slowly behind you like a whispered promise. That night, as you lay beneath your blankets and listened to the soft patter of rain outside, the memory of the lantern-lit bridge stayed with you, a quiet trail of light woven through the mist, guiding you safely across the river's hush. And as sleep carried you away, you dreamed of that gentle crossing, wrapped in the soft glow of lantern light and rain's tender song, a place where even the darkest night holds a quiet, flickering warmth waiting just for you. The rain had eased to a gentle murmur, like a whispered farewell, when you found yourself once again standing at the edge of the river, where the bridge awaited quietly, its wet stones glistening softly beneath the tender twilight. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the rich, earthy scent of rain-soaked soil, mingled with the faint perfume of wildflowers lingering on the breeze. The sky stretched wide above, a muted canvas of soft grays and fading blues, touched here and there with the last glimmers of day's light slipping slowly into night. You stepped forward with a slow, deliberate calm, feeling the coolness of the stone beneath your boots. The steady hum beneath the arches, rising like a steady heartbeat beneath your feet. Crossing the bridge this final time, you noticed how the rain's touch had transformed everything. The leaves dripping with lingering droplets, the river flowing steady and sure beneath, the mist curling low and gentle, wrapping the world in a delicate embrace. The silence was deep and soft, filled not with emptiness but with the warmth of quiet memories, the gentle weight of mist on your skin, the scent of wet earth and old wood, the soft pulse of water flowing beneath stone. It felt like stepping into a dream you had visited many times before. Familiar yet always new, a world held together by the fragile threads of rain and time. Beyond the far side, the path stretched out softly beneath the canopy of trees, their branches heavy with the last kisses of rain, leaves shimmering in the fading light. The earth was soft and cool beneath your feet, alive with the scent of moss and flowering herbs. The faint hum of life carried in the quiet rhythm of dripping water. You moved slowly, savoring the tender hush of the moment, letting the stillness fold around you like a gentle breath held deep inside. Every step was a quiet celebration of the journey you had taken. Across the bridge, beneath the rain, through the mist and light and shadow, you reached a clearing where the air was cool and fragrant, a place where time seemed to pause and gather itself like the last raindrops on a leaf. The world felt suspended between here and somewhere just beyond, a threshold held in the embrace of rain's gentle hand. You rested there a moment, letting the quiet settle deep inside. The soft murmur of the river carried on the breeze. The lingering scent of earth and stone and rain wrapped close like a whispered secret. It was a place of endings and beginnings, where every memory of the bridge and rain came together in a gentle harmony. As the light faded fully, giving way to the soft shimmer of stars just beginning to twinkle in the deepening sky, you turned once more toward the bridge, the path lit faintly by the last glimmers of twilight. The stones beneath your feet were cool and steady, the hum beneath the arches a quiet song that carried you gently home. The rain had almost stopped now, the world quiet and soft, wrapped in the tender promise of return, that the bridge would always appear again, wherever rain might fall, waiting quietly to carry you across once more. That night, as you lay wrapped in blankets and the steady rhythm of your breath, the memory of the bridge's gentle crossing stayed with you, a slow flowing passage through rain and mist and light, a soft place where time folds and the world breathes softly in the quiet dark. And as sleep came to gather you, you carried with you the calm embrace of that last step across the bridge, a tender whisper in the night, guiding you gently into dreams woven from rain and stone and the steady hum of a world held together by quiet magic.